Deep down, there was a part of me that wondered if eventually this particular issue regarding all of the mass deportations going on was going to bubble to the surface. I did not expect it to happen in the first week. There is something happening right now that is going to reveal something about a certain group of people that I don't think a lot of folks in my audience are gonna want to hear, but it's the truth and you need to hear it. Trump to hammer Colombia after it turns away migrant flights. Now, this lasted all of about an hour after Trump then threatened tariffs if they didn't take the people back. But there's a part of the story that both sides of the mainstream media are leaving out completely. And when you get the whole truth, then you start to wonder what's really going on. Let me ask you a question. Just by looking at somebody, can you tell the difference, just by looking at them, whether they're Colombian, Venezuelan, Brazilian, Ecuadorian, Honduran, Cuban? Can you tell by? Of course you can't. Of course you can't. All that they are doing is asking people, are you from Colombia? Are you from Venezuela? You see, if those migrants who were coming to the border, quote unquote, legally or illegal or whatever, said that they were from Venezuela, they were much more likely to get favorable treatment from the U.S. government than, say, if they were from Panama or from Brazil. Why? Well, of course, the U.S. sanctions and all this, and Nicolas Maduro's a dictator, all this nonsense. So, of course, if they said they feared for their lives, or they feared for going to jail, or something like that, or some type of repression, they were going to automatically get asylum. But if they said they were from Colombia or one of our allies down there, they wouldn't. And now it's coming back to actually bite the government, and you're not going to believe it, but there are conservatives now in Congress who are begging Donald Trump to pick and choose which Spanish speakers get deported and which ones don't, regardless of status. Now, real quick, as always, thank you, everyone who continues to join us over at the Florida Monkey Patreon channel. Love to have you over there. Talk about it every day because it's important for this channel to keep going. I've got to have a steady stream of folks going over there because it's not for everybody. I've had people go over there and love it, and they've been with the channel for years, and God bless all of you who have stepped up and made me a priority, made this channel a priority in your life. I very much appreciate it, but it's not for everybody. That's why it's fully refundable. First 90 days, no questions asked, hundreds of never before seen on YouTube videos. Over there, we can talk about things with the gloves off and speak our minds and not really worry so much, too much anyway, about getting videos taken down. Now, let's get right to it. Representative Maria Elvira Salazar, now she's a conservative from here in Florida, wrote a letter saying, I'm urging Homeland Security to protect Cubans awaiting legal status adjustment through the Cuban Adjustment Act. Well, who put in place the Cuban Adjustment Act? That's right, Joe Biden. We must also protect the Venezuelans and Nicaraguans without a criminal record going through the asylum process, meaning they're illegal. Don't penalize them for Biden's screw-up. Now, I know this is kind of, let me see if I can zoom this in. Make it a little bit easier to read here. Now, this is a conservative congresswoman talking to President Trump and the Department of Homeland Security. Dear Acting Secretary Huffman, I'm writing in response to the January 23, 2025 U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement memo titled Guidance Regarding How to Exercise Enforcement Discretion. I am concerned with how this new guidance may affect individuals in Miami, read the rich ones. As you know, on Monday, January 20, President Trump ended the program formerly known as the Processes for Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. Following up on this yesterday, guidance expands expedited removal against these populations. Since many of these individuals currently reside in Miami, there are open questions on how exactly this will be implemented. Individuals all of a sudden now all of a sudden, individuals must be afforded due process. This is Maria Salazar, conservative, Trump supporter, speaking here. I strongly urge you to ensure that all Cubans paroled under the CHNV program, eligible for or with pending applications for the Cuban Adjustment Act, are protected from deportation until their cases are fully resolved. Additionally, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, and Haitians who arrived under this Joe Biden program have no criminal record and have applied for asylum through the proper legal channels should also be protected until their cases are fully resolved. And she even admits this in the final paragraph. Although President Biden originally created this new program on dubious legal grounds and brought individuals here without a plan for their future, they were still enrolled under programs offered to them. Therefore, I believe they should have the ability to seek their applications out to rectify their legal status. I look forward to hearing from you. Really. This is interesting because while Colombia decided to throw a temper tantrum and say, we're not taking the flights, Venezuela, way back in 2018, started their own program. How many of you knew that? That the Venezuelan government said any Venezuelan anywhere in the world, including the U.S., who wanted to come back, Venezuela would pay for the tickets. Now, Venezuela had some conditions when it came to the idea of the forced repatriation flights. Number one, Nicolas Maduro asked the government here to say, look, there are a lot of people from Colombia, from Brazil, from Panama, from all saying they're Venezuelans. We want our people to be brought to Washington, D.C. or wherever so that we can confirm they actually are Venezuelans. And they aren't just saying that to get preferential treatment. Preferential treatment. That preferential treatment, just like was confirmed by Ms. Salazar. He said, we want our people to confirm they're actually Venezuelans, number one. Number two, we also want there to be, if there are criminals with criminal records that you want to send back to Venezuela, that's fine. That's fine, U.S. government. But it has to go through normal extradition procedures, just like the U.S. would sending criminals back to any other country. But because of the sanctions and the blockade, there are no normalized relations. Now, Nicolas Maduro has said recently that he looks forward to normalizing relations and getting this job done and working with President Trump. Now, those of you who haven't seen this story, Colombia's President Gustavo Petro buckles under Trump's trade war threat, offers his own presidential plane for deportation flights. See, nobody's pretending they're from Colombia. Those who are Colombians are Colombians. But Venezuela has always said it'll welcome its migrants back as long as they can be part of the process in determining whether those people who say they are Venezuelans are actually Venezuelans. To facilitate repatriation, Maduro launched the Return to the Homeland Plan in 2018, establishing air and land bridges for migrants to return without cost. Upon arriving, people are incorporated into their own social benefit programs. Because they were coming back from places like Chile and where they were seen as persona non grata because of the U.S. White House pushing for resumption of deportation flights to Venezuela. You see, Venezuela stopped under Biden because Biden wouldn't allow Venezuela to be part of the process in determining who Venezuelans were. They were getting all sorts of people from all sorts of other places like Nicaragua and Guatemala and all these other places that had just said they were. And the reason, and this proves it, by the way, it was the U.S. blockade against Venezuela that caused the mass migration. It was the U.S. blockade. It wasn't socialism. It wasn't socialism. Lula, leader of Brazil, welcomes back banned Venezuelan leader Maduro. You're going to have to, folks, ask yourself a question. Why didn't regime change, Washington-engineered regime change, work in Venezuela? Why did it fail so miserably? There was a reason. People didn't understand how nationalistic the Venezuelans were. How, okay, we're going to be poor. U.S. is going to blockade us. They don't like the way we govern our country. Okay, but we're not going to have a U.S. puppet in charge. I don't care how much money you promise us. I don't care how much wealth and all this other stuff you promise us. If it comes at the condition of being a U.S. puppet, we're not going to do it. Many of you in my audience are probably old enough to remember, but don't remember, when way back in the 80s under Reagan, first non-NATO country to get the F-16 from Ronald Reagan was Venezuela. Venezuela was our ally. Venezuela was socialist, and they were our ally. Colombia was very, very capitalist, and they were our enemy because of the amount of drugs they were pushing into this country back then. And they've never stopped. Now it's just a completely different political game because of the amount of oil that has been discovered in Venezuela. And they had enough of basically just being this free fountain of oil that the U.S. could just come take it anytime they wanted to control oil prices without paying for what it was actually worth. So, just saying, can you tell the difference? I don't think anybody could tell me the difference between just by looking at a Mexican, a Puerto Rican, a Honduran, a Venezuelan. You get down into Chile and Argentina, and you'll see people that look positively European down here. So you wouldn't be able to know. So when we talk about, the Venezuelan that did this, how do you know? How do you know that person actually is Venezuelan when the U.S. government has made a policy of giving preferential treatment to to Venezuelans, Cubans, and Nicaraguans? How will you know? They know. That's why they say they're all from Venezuela, so that they can get asylum, which calls into question the actual numbers of people that have left Venezuela. People just saying they're Venezuelan. So I will leave it there. God bless. Pray for each other. Join us on Patreon. Love to have you over there. Could sure use the help. I'm not ashamed to say so. Sure could use the help. This coming week, we're going to have brand new videos up. $1 a month level. $5 a month level. Love to have you over there. God bless y'all. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. See you guys next time.